Hello, welcome to another Azure Centric Podcast on our show, the Azure Weekly News. Uh, Thank you for watching this. If it's the first time that you are watching, we have a pretty good agenda today. It's been not as busy week on Azure, but it's a very good one and a lot of new excitement on Azure infrastructure side of it, especially on the government side of it. It's what we can say right now, and to not spoil anyone. But yeah, don't forget to subscribe our channel if you like us, or if it's the first time. If you are seeing us from YouTube, don't forget to put on that ring bell to just get notifications when we release the video, and you will be one of the firsts to see it. Give us some love, some support. Even if you don't like us, give us the love as well, or not love. This is a very special week because it's a week that we have the Valentine's Day, and we want you to share the love of Azure with all of you, right, Andrew?
It's the International Week of Celebrating Love.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And we're here to share our love for all things Azure.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you can see, we are recording this on a daylight. Yes, we are not anymore night owls. Now we are very early birds. It's been a very, very tough week for us. So we decided to just skip your normal way and to record this on the next day when we are fresh and when we want are excited about that.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a busy week.
My
So,
God, yeah.
not a big release week, but there's been a lot of things going on kind of in the Azure world. And Microsoft has a lot of different kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Different channels, I guess, going across, and everything is really moving at a very fast pace for everybody right now.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it was good to move this into the daytime on the next day. Plus, it's really nice to see some sunshine in the background. So I like that.
And it brightens you even more. It's like, oh yeah, it's like, although I'm on my what's called the caveman, I'm on my basement. You are you are definitely not on your basement. Your office is not on your basement, but that's why my light is always the same, no matter if it's a very bright day or not. I only have a small window that I'm looking outside, but yeah. But it is an awesome week, and it was a very tired one, I have to say, at least for all the things that we've been working, and that's the reason that you see some light, especially on the Andrew's window, and that's the reason why. So let's jump into our first one. So our first update of this week is general availability for soft delete for Azure file shares is now on default for new storage accounts. So cool beans on this. Very nice update. Very nice.
Yeah, this is a good one. So this one came out a little while ago.
Yeah.
I want to say about a month, maybe 2 months ago. I vaguely remember it in our history. And then now it is the default. So the soft delete on by default, really good, because now we don't have to think about it. So if you provision an Azure file share, automatically you have like what the 7 days, is it 7 or 14?
7 days.
7 days. Yeah, is the soft delete one, right?
Yeah.
And then that's just there by default. So it helps protect the organization and the data by default. So that's just a really good thing. You don't have to enable it. It's just there.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, you want to layer whatever your organization needs for backups and, globally redundant storage, things like that you would choose with the storage account. So
absolutely.
It's yet just another layer of protection just automatically on.
And the good thing about this is, if you are a listen, did you create this storage account after January 31st? It's automatic there, so that's the good news. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not, and if you have code, okay, already on the scripts that you are doing for creating all of that, there is a new switch, okay, that is enable delete in this Azure CLI is enable delete retention that you need to put as a true. Okay, that's the only add-on that you have to put on Azure CLI. And if you don't want, guess what? It's setting off true, you just put false, right? But this is basically the recycle bin. As if you can say this on one word or one sentence. This is basically the recycle bin of Azure file shares that you have. So it's 7 days by default. Of course, that you can increase, but then you have to change. By default, it's 7 days.
Exactly. Yeah. And so if you're using code to create infrastructure, or infrastructure is code really. Microsoft is saying if you create it after January 31, you have to go in and set that to false if you don't want it there. Because just to kind of that little heads up is you do see data for soft delete files. So if you set that to like 99 days or whatever the cap is, I haven't played with that one yet. It's brand new. Whatever the cap is, if you're retaining that can add up if you have a high turnover of files. So just a heads up on extra data charges under soft delete for that.
Yeah.
But I think it would be quite minor in most cases.
No, absolutely. And that's a very good point because you have to remember exactly that. Remember that storage on Azure is pay as you go. And on storage is the capacity. If you are increasing the retention, okay, from the default is 7 days to more days, so means that even if you delete, for example, a terabyte, okay, what will happen is you will have a terabyte for that retention period that you are paying. And that could be something that you need to be aware of that, so you are not having those kind of problems, right? And that's the problem and that's the thing that you want to be careful with this retention. So by default, it's 7 days. I don't think that this will increase too much on your consumption, but you can always look at, in this case, at your metrics, especially on Azure costs, and we will cover that in a few moments. I'm already saying what we're going to talk in the future, but that's okay.
Well, it is a frequent flyer here with us, and it's not unexpected, I think.
Talking about frequent flyer, we were missing this for a few episodes
That's
already.
Right.
Azure Automation, our good friend of Azure Automation, was not getting so much love lately. And now, guess who's coming back? Azure Automation is now available now in our friends, a little bit in Japan West, a little bit far away from us.
Now, was it last week or the week before that it was in Japan East? I remember seeing Azure Automation made it out. So now in Japan West.
If you can give me a few seconds, I might double check that.
You take all the time in the world. We can always do a quick time lapse too. But
no, we don't do that over here. This is like pressing the record button and hope.
Yeah. So if this is your first time out to the show, you will notice very much that as we stumble and mispronounce things all over the darn place, we just don't cut anything. We just leave it all in.
Yeah.
So it's more of just a conversation that we would have anyways. We just tend to record it and talk a little bit more focused about you so that you can enjoy our beautiful Azure content. But so in Japan West, Azure Automation out, really cool. As you know, I'm a huge fan of automating and runbooks and functions. And that reminds me, we should talk about runbooks. I know you and I had something on the books, as it were, outside of the podcast. So we should resync about that one.
Yeah, I think what you're missing is one of the episodes that we talk about. It was Japan West, but it was regarding log analytics.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. Could do.
It was log analytics. It was not the Azure Automation. So apparently the Japan...
It's really cool though, right?
Yeah.
Because everything keeps just spreading through these regions.
Absolutely.
Worldwide. And of course, the Azure teams are just so busy trying to keep pace and with the continuous improvement, continuous deployment models that are in place for everything in the back end of Azure. I think that it's really neat how we see things kind of spread across the whole planet
Yeah.
with all of these features. So yet again, Japan West adding Azure automation, really, really good improvement. So orchestration is coming your way.
And all the benefits that we've been always talking on this show about the automation and all you can automate and a lot of good things. Now it's available on Japan West, and it's not in preview, so it's general availability right now on this feature, right? And that's the cool part of it. Talking about moving on to another one, general availability. Now we can ingest up to 10 files and blobs with the new Azure Data Explorer intuitive UX. So basically, they were improving our user interface to just ingest some blobs or files into our Azure Data Explorer. It's on Wizard. I did test this because I was demonstrating, for example, some log analytics part of it, and I noticed this where I say, oh, this is new. And then again, this is the benefits. What I love about our show is make us as aware of all of those small changes, right? And sometimes
absolutely. I think it's really cool because we actually get to pass this on to the clients that we deal with like almost right away. It's really, really fun. So it's like, you know what? This is a brand new feature, just came out 2 days ago on Azure Updates blog. And boom, here it is right at the client. And I have to tell you, people get excited when they know that they get to play with something brand new.
And
yeah, it's like a new car smell.
And I have to say that probably I will have a few, not me, we will have a few more views this week because I did the shameless plug for our show that I will say, I will cover this on our show. So next week, please go there and view it. So we'll probably increase our views because of this. I was literally on a workshop and I was digging in this case into some of those snapshots that, for example, Azure Sentinel and the Microsoft Cloud App Security they can have, right? Not the continuous one, but the snapshot. And I was saying, but then if you want to kind of use a particular time and you want to see it, you can always go on Azure Data Explorer to just kind of going. And I went there and say, oh, you can even do blobs now. And he was say, must be a new feature. So you know where I went, right? I went directly to this update to say, wow, this is literal news, guys. I was doing like, I think it was on the 10th, the day before, the day after this, they publish. And I say, wow, this is new, guys. See, we are using the brand new technology. And by the way, you should see our show, our podcast show, the weekly news, because we will cover this. And I cannot mention the client, of course, but I will mention that I did use this on the client. Yeah.
That's really cool. So we should maybe pause then and welcome our 7th listener. So thank you all 6 dedicated listeners,
is awesome.
and welcome to our 7th. And I'm sorry you happened to take a sip of water at the same time, so I apologize.
Yes, I almost had an online accident in this case. Yes, I think we are a little bit over the 7.
Marcos is a total audio video nerd. So, for everybody out there online, Marcos is very dedicated to really fine-tuning all of the beautiful things and qualities of these video podcasts. So I truly would have felt very guilty about that.
Oh my God, I will spill coffee in everything, on the microphone, the camera, the new sound, whatever it is that I have, sound mixer, whatever it is.
Well, to get everything to record, it does get a little claustrophobic sometimes when we do these kinds of things, right? Like that's the physical reality of it. But it's actually really cool because, it's like the short-term pain and long-term gain, because for me, I really love being able to just get together, chat about these new features and just share it. Enough said. we do have a few more updates to make it through. So I'm not going to get too sidetracked. I promise.
That's okay, my friend.
I
This
can't promise
one,
that.
this one, it's a very interesting one because we were commenting before when we were doing the agenda for today's podcast that we were using this, but we never mentioned on our show. So
Yeah, we saw this and we thought, you know what, we've never talked about Azure mobile app.
yeah,
And yet it's one of the really, it's not really a secret, but it's like a secret weapon, right? It's like a shoe phone for Maxwell Smart. And, we can start a process in our home office. We can go and make a coffee. I'm sorry for my analogies. This is what happens when you get me in the daylight.
I think we should move our recording in this case to the day after because apparently it's way more entertainment.
To be fair, it is the weekend of love. It is
Yes.
family in Alberta and in many provinces across the country. So we get a long weekend to spend time specifically with loved ones, friends, and family. And so anyways, yeah, I feel like I'm on vacation 3 days in a row with almost no work. It really is a vacation these days.
Absolutely.
So that said, but we will start processes off. We'll be deploying infrastructure, doing the things in Azure, and then we can go make a coffee, sit down, pet the dog, talk to our family. We can use the mobile and check. We don't have to run back and forth, up and down stairs. And the difference for that is I remember I made a little function, and you're going to remember this from a client we worked together with. I made a little function to detect encryption files and then automatically start shutting everything down. Like it was a kill switch. It was manual, and it had to wait for me to come in and approve something on my Azure mobile app. So using some PowerShell, and at the time we didn't have runbooks, so we did some crafty stuff around the side there. But I used PowerShell in Azure just to shut down all of the systems at a whole company. And I tested in small scale, and it worked really good. And I'm so happy to report I never had to use it.
Yeah.
But it's the mobile app can become a very integrated part of what you're working with.
Absolutely.
And you can use it when you're out on the golf course and all of those things. Yes, I'm optimistic we're going to open everything up and we can go golfing again. Not that I go golfing, I'm a terrible golfer. But the mobile app can really serve as a powerful tool to supplement the way that you do your work. Allows you to go in. You can reboot a server remotely very quickly from your mobile if that's needed. So as an administrator, it can really help save you time, and it gives you flexibility to truly work anywhere. You don't have to have a PC for some of the things. You can do it through the mobile app. It's really awesome.
Not, yeah, I have to say that it helps us a lot to extend. It's not the same thing that we have on our desktops, although it's very close because I was expecting you to mention, in this case, that is my favorite thing that they have on this mobile app, that is the Cloud Shell, to leverage the Cloud Shell.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times we have, and this is, and I did blog this a lot of times on the Azure Centric blog. So another shameless plug, go there to just see it. It's been a while that I did blog about this, but the importance of this app, sometimes it's going to extend what you're doing. So right now what I'm using is, we have a lot of our scripts sometimes that we have, even for not scripts for deployment, or even for scripts for deployments or implementations, but usually scripts to get a little bit more notion on what is going on if you need to troubleshoot something. When I'm outside, usually, and I've happened a lot of times, like you mentioned, a lot of times we are, I don't know why, but it always happens usually during the night when we are having a nice supper with our beautiful wives, right? By beautiful wives, I mean like I have my wife and Andrew have his wife. Not that I'm I have
Well,
multiple
I'm
wives.
confused here. So now you have how many wives?
No, I only have one because
Oh,
I know
oh.
that my wife listened this podcast, and I just want to make sure that that is straight up on the internet. Okay. Um,
I was going to say. I mean, she definitely keeps me in line. I know that she
so
keeps
is
you in
this
line
mean
as
that we have
well.
our eighth visitor? Okay, joke aside, we cannot do this on the daytime because
We may have to cut this
yeah,
evening here.
probably
That's okay.
we have to record this on the evening because it's too much fun. But I was using
It
this.
is. It's a lot of fun. But you're right. So the Cloud Shell on the mobile is actually very awesome. So we can you can store your script in a number of ways. Let's say it's in a storage account,
Yeah,
and you can access that through CLI directly, and then execute that script in your Azure subscription. And you can do this, of course, because we as administrators we tend to touch multiple subscriptions with multiple clients. And this is a really secure way to do it. So you can enforce PIN, you can enforce, I know on the iPhone, you can enforce the face
yeah,
authentication as well. So you have to unlock the phone, you have to unlock the app, you have to know how to access everything within the app and get to the resources. I want to emphasize that because I think it's part of today's ecosystem is having really good security, and multi-factor authentication is a big part of that.
yeah.
So,
And right now we didn't
just
talk about we talk about the app, but we didn't talk about this update. So now this was for the general Azure. So now this app is going beyond, and all of our friends at they are using the Azure Government now supports their Azure Government as well because it's a totally separated Azure. The infrastructure are not the same, the regions are not the same. They are dedicated to government, and is where they can use or leverage this, right? So now it's good. And I have to say, to go back a little bit, that saved me a lot of times the trouble of able to finish the dinner, to running something or stopping a service or restarting a service or starting a virtual machine or whatever it was, that you can do it through the app. I highly recommend, if you don't have it, to download it. It's free. Okay, the app is free, and it's not the same because you have to still, you are limited on the functions that you are able to do it regarding on the portal, as you can imagine, right? Because it's not the same. But if you have scripts and if you are as well organized as Andrew, that is the most IT organized person that I ever met in entire my life, is it's awesome to have all of those scripts and all of that you might need to on the literally on the palm of your hand. Depending
it's true.
depending
Yeah,
how big on
it
your
adds a
hand
layer of
and how big is your
flexibility.
iPhone or phone, whatever, right?
Well, that's true. Yeah, and I haven't tested it, but I'm sure it works on iPad as well. Give you a slightly larger screen. But I
Good
think it's
point.
really good because it allows us to extend what we've been enjoying in our pay-as-you-go and partner tenants and things like that in regular Azure for commercial. Now is available for Azure Government.
Absolutely.
That's just a really cool
It
update
is.
because now we're extending that flexibility to even more people, and especially people right now that with the work from home. I know government workers have been really stressed trying to bridge all these gaps, and their resources are limited. So it's really good to give them as many flexible ways to work as we possibly can. So really well done, awesome.
Yeah. Moving to the next one. Versions no longer required for key vault reference in app service and Azure functions. So this is an amazing update, and the reason that I
Hmm.
like about this is, usually if you have experience, I use this in this case on Azure functions quite a few times, and on app services, because I did deploy some app services in the past. I did use, but I using more these on Azure Functions. So
Hmm.
when you update, and usually it's a good practice to on your key vault to update the strings, in this case for especially for let's say the storage account, for example, to kind of uh, regenerate those strings and update on key vaults. You, if you have an app service, you were to mention the version. Okay. In this case, when you update, this update what it does, it is when you update the secret, okay, automatically updates the version, let's call it this way, and you don't need to require any more to go there. So what does that mean? Means that, in my opinion, means very good for us because we don't need to change anymore those calls from those app services in Azure Functions. Because when you update the keys, for example, that I was mentioned with storage accounts, you are updating on Azure Key Vault, and the Key Vault, anytime you call it, you don't need to change anything back to the version that you are doing. So now it's no version, and you can update, and automatically Key Vault will handle that. Cool. I think it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think it's really good. It really just is about not having to worry about the versioning with the entry now, right? So the versioning is just automatic, and it's one step that makes it more efficient, makes it faster and easier. So we can make the code a little bit more generic in that regard, and that means that it's going to be a little bit less work to get
And
out and
it's
push
not
into
only
production is what
that.
I'm
If
trying
you
to say.
see it, this allow us to improve. And a lot of times, if you remember on one project we had together, a lot of times we were kind of reducing the security, okay, because of that. Because every time you need to regenerate those keys, for example, you had to
Hmm.
go on the code on app service to say now you need to do it that key that is new, that is version like 2 or version 4 or version whatever it is, to update that. So now what we can do is this update, what allow us is we can now raise the security, right, to another level that we can implement some of those automations for generating those keys, so get a little bit more frequent the regeneration of the keys, and then hence the security of the environment without going there and changing the code and changing the Azure function or changing the call, because the call is going to be the same, right? And those keys is going to be more is going to be rotate more frequently. So we are increasing in this case the security of the solution. That's the part that I just want to mention, and that's the part that I want to bring over here because this is what basically this update will do. A very small part of it, of course, on your environment, right?
Absolutely, yeah, and it helps to increase security, like you said, with that just automated rotation of the keys can happen more often now. Then that's never going to be a bad
No,
thing.
it never. And talks about security. Azure Databricks achieved the DoD impact level 5 on the Microsoft Azure Government. I did.
Now, I want to say I think this is the top tier DoD level 5, right?
Is the top tier, although it's not regarding Azure Government, it's not the top of the compliance. Okay, so by compliance on Azure, usually they call it in this case the compliance offering. There is one specific that we're going to mention that is regarding to China, but you have basically four. Okay, you have the Azure Public Cloud that you already have compliance there for different areas, but then you have the Azure
Hmm.
Government, that is one. Then you have the Azure Government for the DoD. Okay, this is the
Hmm.
inside of that is the top level. But then you have another one that we mentioned on this show that is the Azure Government Secrets. That is the
Yeah.
really the top one regarding security. So this is achieving, so this service is achieving the DoD impact level 5, that is the top on the Department of Defense, right?
Yeah.
But
So that's really cool. So, oh
yeah,
no, go ahead.
the thing is, and you may ask, so what's the difference? The difference is, and now I have to look at my notes, is, for example, Azure Government is available in 3 regions in the United States, okay? For all the US government agencies and their partners, okay? So this is basically for the government agency that we're talking about. And on this update, they will say what is, in this case, the DoD that they are using. And then you have the DoD that is only 2 regions. And then you have the secret that is another 3 regions exclusively for secrets. For the federal, it's where, for example, the NSA, FBI, and all of those top secret ones they are not using. The DoD is totally different. They have 2 exclusive regions for the Department of Defense, and then the Azure government is where the all the other government they will have another 3 regions. So just from the US government they have, if my math is good, they have 8 exclusive regions for them.
Yep, that sounds right. That sounds
Yeah.
right. Yeah, it's really cool, right? So I was taking a quick read towards the bottom of this article while you were explaining that, and I thought it was really cool. So kind of pulling it out of there, the federal, state, and local government agencies, and then they list a number of them, not the least of which is the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, Department of Transportation, Medicare and Medicaid Services, and then quite a few others. They can now utilize Azure Databricks for critical data and AI needs, where the data is unclassified but still secured.
Yeah.
So this is actually a very cool update because now federal agencies and contractors can use Azure Databricks to process that sensitive, unclassified data. So they can use the mission critical data, and it can be national security classified data, but they're now allowed to use this in the cloud computing environment. So now they can take advantage of additional AI powers within there. So that's really cool, especially when we think, we talk a lot about medical data and, kind of the special compute powers of machine learning and AI when applied over medical data. So it's learning things. It allows things to happen faster. Testing of data models can be processed at scale with the cloud computing in Azure. So there's so many things that I can't even think of. But this is a very, very big update. So it sounds like it's a small one and kind of hides away kind of like this classification of secured computing in here. But it's very powerful. It's going to impact a lot of people. So there's a very positive outcome from this
No,
update.
absolutely, and just shows that that is one of the things that I like about working with Azure, that they are constantly improving and getting compliant with all of that. And even if you look at the post in this case, on this update, they even have, that's the part that I was reading that this morning, because the DoD, the Department of Defense, the U.S. Department of Defense, the Computer Security Requirements Guide, it's a nice document to see what is that they are trying to achieve regarding the security, and why in this case it's a lot of compliance that they need to achieve. And again, this is not an infrastructure as a service, this is a PaaS service. Azure Databricks, right, is more like almost not a SaaS solution, but it's a PaaS service. That is a service that is achieving this on Azure Government. And by achieving this, the only difference that Azure Government have with the Azure Public Cloud is they have these exclusive regions. So they are deployed, and the geo in this case redundancy is only between these regions, right? It doesn't have the part of going outside on what's called the customer cloud in this case, or the customer public cloud, that you have like the 60 plus 1 regions, because all of those 8 regions are not mentioned, okay, on those 60 plus regions on Azure.
No, they're
They are
physically
physically
separated.
separated, and that is really cool. And they are totally different because a lot of times um, I didn't have an opportunity to work on the Azure government yet, but now with my security clearance, I will able to do that. So finally, that's an update. That's a Marcos Nogueira update. Now I'm
It's a
security
Marcos
clearance.
update, and
I have security clearance, so now I can talk about not talk. I can work on this Azure as well. Uh,
that's for Canada
yeah, of
DoD,
course.
by the way.
Canada DoD of, but I have the security clearance now, so now I can work. Azure Government they will have on Canada, I'm assuming as well. I have to double check that, but yes,
So there is not so much DoD Canada, but there is certainly Azure Government
yeah,
in Canada, and I'm not sure how extensive
it is. Yeah,
it breaks out, but I know that there's some federal projects underway in Canada, and that was public release data. So use Bing, dig down, and you can find those, and have fun
yeah.
looking those
If
up
you don't find in
if that's
that,
your thing, I
if you don't
guess.
find on that search engine, you have a little bit the other one that have some rings, color rings that you can probably use. Just kidding.
Oh, the
The
Olympic
Olympic
one.
one, yeah. The Olympic one. Good way to put it.
Springy, the Springfield Spring is their Olympic sponsor, I think, wasn't it? Is that?
Now, are we going? Are we going now to the Simpsons? It's where we're going.
I can't help it's the sunshine. I'm solar powered. You
Yeah, I
know
know, I know, I know.
that.
And talking about regions, another region. My
Yeah.
God,
Hello.
US 3.
US East 3.
It's like
Yeah.
those guys amazing.
Amazing.
It's like US 1, no, East US 2,
Yep.
and now
East US
East
2
US
and now
3.
East US 3.
and
Yeah.
and this is shows the things that I was always referring, and I think I have to create a kind of I think I mentioned that on my podcast regarding regions, or if I not, or subscriptions and all that. If not, I have to create one talking about the regions, and talking
Mm.
about VNetting and probably that, because um, why another region, you may ask. And the reason why is, the thing is, there are data centers, as you know, on Azure, right? And those data centers, it's they call it zones. Okay, so a region can have between at least one zone inside of that region, and to up to three zones. At least it's what has been so far. What defines a zone between a region is the latency between those data centers. Okay, so if the latency, if for example it's less than 5 milliseconds, then it's outside of that region. So now it's creating another region, and hence in this case the third region on East US. Okay, so we have a lot of data centers on East US because of the demand, right? Is the part of the North American continent, or the North American region, that is where more populated, where more people live, and
It
everything
is. Yeah.
else. So that hence going on the third region there. But because they have so many data centers on that area, they are not in this case within that latency. So now they are creating another region, and this is show how keen and how fast and how particular the deployment or the implementation of the centers are in Azure, and to just doing all of that. And that's very good way. It's shame that we have another region, because we can extend the difference of the region and the zones is with the region you cannot extrapolate the vignettes. For example, you have to create another vignette. It's a kind of another
Mm-hmm.
boundary inside of Azure, but it's good because now you can replicate your workload across these three regions, and you really need a very big catastrophe to just eat the East US, and now you will have more lower, in this case, latency for those regions, right? For those data centers.
Exactly. Yeah, it provides a better redundancy. We can distribute workloads. And, like you were saying with the availability zones, a zone means usually within a region you have a different physical data center, right?
Yeah.
So if you were, say, in US East, or let me say it the right way, sorry, East US 2, and you put, let's say, a server in an availability zone. Now you have that server in data center 1 in East US 2 and in data center 2. Now you don't see the data center difference. You just put it in an availability zone and understand that that's what it does. Now we have East US 3, so we can do that server in East US 2 and East US 3.
Yeah.
So now we're better redundancy. It's further apart. So more resiliency. And again, I think you're right. It shows how quickly these resources are growing, the Azure data centers, and how those resources within Azure are being consumed at a fast enough pace to build out yet a third region in the US. So they can't build any more data centers close enough to keep their response time under 5 milliseconds. So they have to go outside that space. Now they have to create another zone, but there's enough demand for them to build at that distance.
Yeah.
So they need that physical data center space to be able to do that. And that's really cool because in Georgia, in Fulton and Douglas counties in Georgia, I think that's absolutely awesome. I've been down there. I've spent a lot of time down towards Atlanta, and it's actually a very, very cool area. They need those jobs, and especially in the modern economy, that's going to be really good for those areas. There's a lot of development there, a lot of things happening in southern U.S., and
it's not only
that's
that,
going
I
to
think
really
I
help.
read another day that Atlanta is starting to be another point of presence for internet, and that's where they are starting this development of this third region in East US as well. There is a lot of momentum happening on that area, especially in Atlanta. Not because
Mhm.
of the US elections, nothing to do with that, but now talking about technology,
No
no
politics
politics over
involved here.
here. But it's technology wise, there is a lot of momentum happening, and that's really cool to see that the response of that is now they will have a region close to that, and that's really cool to see it in this case on Azure, that they are developing a massive, in this case, region there. So it means that they will
Hmm.
have not only one, they will have a few data centers on that region. So is that even better for that part of the US, right? I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's a little
So,
bit south, right, to that. So it will probably grab Florida as well, a little bit as well, like Texas and all of that, allowing to have lower latency to that. Although Texas, they have what's called the South, the South
yes,
one.
there's U.S. South,
Yeah, that
right?
is in Texas, if I'm not mistaken. Uh,
I think so. But again though, like you're absolutely spot on because it's about the customer, the end customer, having the lowest latency options. So this is adding a low latency option for anybody really in
in
that
that region, yeah,
kind of southeast quadrant,
yeah,
right? So it adds an extra redundancy into the whole mix, and that's always a good
it
thing,
is,
right?
it is.
So we love using availability zones whenever possible. because it adds that extra layer of redundancy, and it means that the apps, the systems stay up no matter what the physical problems are in a data center. And yeah, we should do a special podcast on like availability zones and availability, everything
Yeah,
availability. I think that would be a really cool
it
kind of
is.
specific topic, because I know that there's a lot of confusion with many small businesses that don't have like architects on staff. And there's always a lot of questions when I'm going into the small medium clients about, well, we don't want this extra layer of cost, but we really want to see that third nine in 99.999 uptime. And that's the difference, right? So I usually explain it, an availability set gives you two nines, availability zone can give you three nines, and you have to combine them. You have to layer your protection. And we really should break that out to a whole podcast. It's a full topic to cover. I'm sure it would take a full hour all on its own.
With jokes or without jokes?
Oh, with the jokes, maybe 2 hours at least.
Okay. Joke aside, let's move to the next one. Azure Backup for our friend SAP HANA. Soft limit increase from 2 terabytes to 8 terabytes. I just want to pause over here.
Yeah, that's a big
It's a big
increase, right?
increase, but I just want to pause over here to just say, oh, that's a big increase. So what is the impact of this? The impact of this is SAP HANA. It's a database for SAP, as you can imagine, that use the biggest machines on Azure. And for example, there is one mentioned here that is the MV2 series, that you have 12
That's a big
terabytes
one.
of RAM, and that's one of the reasons that is certified for SAP HANA. Although to have a 12 terabytes and you have a soft limit of 2 terabytes, it will take between 10 hours, approximately 10 to 14 hours or whatever it is, last time I checked it, to do a backup of this. So means that, okay, and this is the part that, just to put on a different context of this update, means that this update, okay, allows you to do backup during the evening, okay, on every single day if you require, instead of only doing backups on the weekend, because usually you don't have those 10 to 14 hours a day to do the backup of the database.
Exactly. Yeah. And you've hit the nail on the head, is that has been the
Yeah,
bottleneck for the backups. Because when you need 14, give or take, hours of availability, because we all know the reality is that backups do impact your production environment, and you have to be very careful with that. So yeah, it typically happens. It starts on like a Friday night, or sometimes super early Saturday morning, and then it's going to run for however long it
yeah,
takes. And that means that your restore point, if you have a disaster, is always 1 week ago, last weekend, kind of a thing. And if it takes 14 hours to back up, it's going to take at least 14 hours to restore. So that's kind of the catch,
yeah, it
right? So
is.
this isn't just about saving in backup times, and this is about optimizing restore time as well. So what's the target that we get this down to?
It,
If we were at 14 hours
it's to
yesterday, today now we're
4 to 6, because
that's
it's
amazing.
amazing because they did. And the thing is, I think the title should be changed on this, because there is another item in this case update regarding this, that they improve in this case the data transfer. So now they can, means that now you can have 1.5 terabytes per hour on data transfer. So that's why
That's
you
right.
can have this on the higher speed, and you are improving the soft limit now to 8 terabytes. So it's really starting to leverage a daily backup that is probably recommended, right? To do this, so
Oh,
it
absolutely.
will improve your restore time, like you mentioned, and it will improve your data loss as well if you anything happens regarding that. Because instead of a weekend or a week, now you can do it this, for example, and it's pretty
Exactly.
cool what they are doing with all of this, especially for SAP HANA, and this is available this week. So please go there for all the clients that they are listening this, or all the listeners that in this case not the clients, all the listens, especially you that you have these type of workloads. Just
That's
it's
right.
a very
Listener
good
number 8.
nine in this case, because
Oh, yes, right.
seven
Yes,
was
I
my
forgot.
new
Yes, I
client,
forgot. Your
eight it's
beautiful wife is number
exactly.
8.
So
Yeah.
now listen number nine.
Oh my goodness,
Oh
we're
my
growing. We're
God, we're
growing
going to
so
explode
quickly.
this week. So don't.
But you raise a good point here, and I just want to kind of digress just for a moment because I want to talk about this with you. Now, uh, we know at least 2 clients that are using availability sets and zones to take care of SAP backup loads. It's not a backup method, but to achieve high availability and coverage and meet RPOs, they have to come up with a different way in their architecture because they weren't able to back SAP HANA databases, right? So it's kind of it's the SAP database, and it gets very big, right? Like we're talking multi terabytes, optimistically here. So what this means, I think, is that in some cases, if you were using other workarounds for backups, such as availability sets, availability zones, and you were replicating data to allow for uptime if, say, one server has a problem or you have to reboot, kind of thing. And the backup challenge is now a different beast, right? So now we can do a backup in, let's just call it 6 hours. So 6 hours instead of 14 hours, that's a big difference, right? So now we can do a backup every night. You started at 10 p.m., it's available for 4 a.m., kind of an idea, right? And that's a very positive thing, super positive. What does that, how does that play out for those customers that we know are doing these kind of workarounds? I think there's some optimization that can be reassessed with this now, right?
Absolutely, it allows them to be um, way more secure and way more yeah, way more secure in this case, and way more reliable on this tooling that they can have. And it's not only that, it allows them to be to doing another type of maintenance on the databases, right?
Exactly, right.
And it's the way that you do it, because again, um, SAP HANA, it's very powerful, and the investment that you're doing on SAP environment is tremendous, and only be able
Hmm.
to doing this, and sometimes to uh, stretch some kind of thin layer of 10 to 14 hours, because even if you optimize, and if you have lower, and talking about usually talking about those big databases, right? Because having, and you're thinking, but 12 terabytes of RAM, it's huge. It really depends on
Mm.
your SAP implementation, but that's only we are putting here the worst case scenario, and that's the part that.
Well, yeah, that's where we focus. That's where we live, though, right?
Yeah, but it's like, yeah, if you have smaller one, it will be that if you have a smaller VM, and if you have a smaller SAP and a database, it means that you're going to improve even faster. Probably, if you have a smaller database, like a few terabytes, like say 5 or 6 terabytes of SAP,
Oh, it's
and
like a 3 hour
it's like a
backup.
two
It's
or
like a
3 hours.
regular
So you can
database
even
backup.
do this. You can even start probably doing backup of the middle of the day, and now you have an incremental one probably, or something like that, or even a full backup that allows you to do it on during the day. So now you're starting to get your BCDR, your business continuity and disaster recovery plan to a different level, where you can even less in this case data that you will lose depending on when disaster recovery occurs, but it will change your plan in this case tremendously. We were talking about these huge, probably like you mentioned, one or two of our clients will have this, but other clients or other listeners, in this case you, that you have SAP that is not those 12 terabytes of RAM in this case that you need, but probably you are using like a 2 or 4 terabyte machine on this soft limit, and with this improvement of 1.5 terabytes of data that you can do it per hour. If you have a machine that is like 4, it takes 2 hours and something, 2 hours and a half, let's call it this way, right? 2 hours and a half, it's doable to have during the lunchtime, for example. Probably if...
Well, sure. Anytime we can reduce that window to a half a day of data loss for recovery point is awesome. A huge win.
It's a huge win,
right? And it just was not possible previously for this workload. So like it is a big deal, and that's why I wanted to talk about it a little bit with you, because there's an opportunity here to reassess some infrastructure design. And now I'm not an SAP architect by any stretch. I can never keep track of how many certs you've done, but I haven't ddone any SAP work.
I have the Azure for SAP, but it's only for implementing SAP on Azure. I'm not an SAP I'm not an SAP architect, because that's a totally different ballpark.
There's some special knowledge that those folks have, and again, so hopefully this update's going to reach them. I'm sure it will. I'm sure they have alerting and things turned on. They're monitoring the Azure Centric Podcast very closely. I'm absolutely positive. So
yeah.
Jokes aside, though, it's a very positive update, and there's a good opportunity to re-architect and reassess for bigger SAP customers, but also for smaller SAP customers, right? Yeah. So we can do some enhancements now.
Completely, we can change in this case, and reducing their BCDR plan of data loss, of course, tremendously, and that's really good. Let's move on to the next one. And now talking about Azure Cost Management. So public preview on Azure Cost Management plus billing cost allocation, now available for Azure Government. And again, this is huge. So now Azure Government, again, I think it's a theme of this show this week, is the Azure Government get a lot of new and very neat updates. And this is a main one, right? Although they are different costs, it's totally different from the public one, but now they can manage to Azure Cost Management.
Cloud. Yeah, commercial public cloud is way different than Azure Government. Yeah. Azure Government, much tighter security controls, and everything is much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Rigid, right? Yeah. So things are put through to a higher security standard, a higher certification standard, like we were talking earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not only that. And then you may ask, why is only coming Azure Cost Management and Billing for cost allocation on Azure Government right now? Again, like we mentioned on this show a few minutes back, is a totally, when we're talking about, in this case, the Azure Government, I think on the series, not on the update regarding the DoD, it's a different implementation. It's totally different from Azure Commercial that we have. It's the regions that they are totally and physically separated. Okay, even the backbone is different. It's not the same. They are not sharing anything in this case.
That's correct. There's a physical separation.
Completely, and that's that they only have this. Again, it's public preview. So if you are listening and you are using the Azure governance, first of all, thank you very much for listening. And I'm sorry, but I will press my favorite button now. If you could subscribe to the channel. I know it's a shameless plug, but it's the first time that I'm doing this right now. okay, on this podcast, but it's something that is totally different. So now it's a different Azure Cost Management that you can do it on your region. And talking about Azure Cost
Absolutely.
Management for government,
Boom.
again,
For government pay-as-you-go. That's right. So this is a big deal because this was not available in the
at
government
all.
stack for Azure. So they were missing out. Like these government folks listening to our podcast, they're saying, "What are these crazy guys talking about? These darn Canucks always going on about cost management. What are they talking?" But this is what we're talking about. It's a fantastic feature. So we can set budgets, and this I do in my own tenants as well. Not just I have two. I have a production and I have a test subscription because I believe in breaking things out and apart. And in my testing subscription, I can do things like preview features and things like that. And in my prod, of course, that's where production workloads lie. Now, in government, we have finally cost management. So we can set a budget. You can set it to, $1,000 a month or something, and then you alert when it's at like 850 so that you can get in front of it before you hit your budget maximum. So another really I cannot emphasize how critical cost management is in government workloads because they have very tight set budgets, and it's not like in private industry where if we need to go from 1,000 to $1,005, that $5, our manager in private industry might say, okay, just Andrew, don't do that again. Be more careful. In government, that $5 doesn't exist in the budget. It's only $1,000 if that's what it is set at. So they have to be very careful for those things, and they have to set maximums. And they need to really be on top of it. And they've been having to do this the old-fashioned way, Marcos, in PowerShell and Excel. Now they have cost management to help them out and put some automation on top of that.
Yeah. And this is the part that I like is a part of for a pay as you go subscriptions. So again, not all the subscriptions that you have available on Azure Commercial are available as well on Azure Government. Okay, they have as well the pay as you go inside of the Azure Government, but this now is Azure Cost Management is available on those ones, and this
That's
is
true.
very keen for those because as you can imagine, pay as you go, you can see what is going to be, for example, as you see in this case, and I apologize in advance for if you are listen. If you are listen, just if you want to go back to the or go in this case to the YouTube channel to seeing what we are demonstrating on the screen, because you can see on what you are consuming now, what is going to be your cost at the end of the month.
Mhm. It's the predictive cost that is really very powerful using Azure AI in behind
Absolutely
here. It's
amazing.
amazing. You are going to freaking love this. It's going to change your life in the government tenants right now.
Absolutely.
And I really mean that. And if you need some help with this, I don't know about authorizations and all that, but come and visit us at Azure Centric. Let us know. We will absolutely do a call with you and walk you through cost management. I know I'll do it for free. I'll offer that right out of the gate. I think that this is just an amazing thing for government subscriptions to take advantage of because it's the prediction of cost and the alerting and setting of budgets. It's such a powerful tool, and you can take this back to your department heads and show a breakdown of cost about, hey, this server thought we were going to, we thought this server was going to cost X, but it was like X plus 4. So, we need to change some things around. So it's so wonderful when you set those really tight budgets and you're doing POC work, which is really where pay-as-you-go tenants are very powerful, right?
Absolutely.
So we often start, small tests and transitions, POCs, I just kind of call them that, in the pay-as-you-go space, and then can transition from there to something in kind of further down the maturity cycle for subscriptions. But what an amazing thing. And I'm sorry, I know I get very excited about cost management, but it's such a powerful tool. And my offer stands. I really mean that. If you're implementing or you're just getting this feature in your government pay-as-you-go, connect with us on Twitter or whatever. And I for sure will donate my time and give you like a half-hour run through on cost management and give you a big introduction on it. 100%. It's such an awesome tool from Azure for our friends, hardworking friends in government tenants, and I just want everybody to take advantage of
Absolutely.
cost
And
management.
if you want,
That's all I want.
there is a very, very cool tutorial on Azure Tracks, in this case, not Azure Centric, Azure Tracks, about cost management. And
Oh yeah, I did do a
I
run
do
through on it,
highly
didn't I?
recommend you going to Azure Tracks in this case and see that beautiful. You probably will see a familiar face. That is, that guy over there.
I,
That guy over there. Yeah. That is showing how you're doing, and you see how passion in this case is Andrew about talking about cost management. So besides this
yeah, that's
donating,
right. So you can go for free to Azure Tracks and watch the video of me doing it, I guess. Okay, there you go. I totally forgot I did that already. Oh my gosh.
oh my, I think we are
It's time, you
glad
know
that
what?
we
That's a good
finish
reminder because it's probably time to update it then,
It
right?
is. It is. It's the way that I'm glad that we finish our podcast, but I don't know what you're gonna forget even more, right? So, um, unfortunately, we end our show this week. I hope you like it. If you like it, don't forget to subscribe, give thumbs up, give any comments that you want. We highly appreciate that. As you can imagine, we live about this. We will continue producing all of these conversations between me and Andrew. That we have just a few friends that they are listening. In this case, you are one of them, so thank you once more.
We're up to 9. This is
Yeah,
just
we
so
are growing
wonderful.
like crazy. It's like, oh my God, skyrocketing. I'm gonna celebrate.
I joke a little bit about that, but I mean, it's very flattering
Yes.
when somebody comes back and says, "Hey, I heard this, you talking about this on the podcast with Marcos, and I really learned, or I went and I took that and I did it in my test subscription." And that is so amazing to hear. So honestly, if we reach just one person, I'm so thrilled about it. I know my goals. You keep telling me I should set my goals much higher than one, but if we can
Nine.
help
We have
just one
nine now.
person, then I think it's.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you
We
so
were at
much.
9. Now we've come back down. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Thank you so much for being here with us for another week, and don't forget to one more time to support us by subscribing us, and to give thumbs up and comments and just get in touch with us. That's just share the love that we are sharing with you without any problem. And I hope you see you next week. So thank you and bye.